It's the 106th edition, folks. I probably didn't need to tell most of you because you are locked in on this one. This means so much to both sides. It's Pitt, it's West Virginia in Morgantown. It is the backyard brawl. We got Mike Ostie here from Pittsburgh Sports Now and also WV Sports Now. Mike, it's good to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's the backyard brawl. So there's no way to be down in the dumps, no matter which side you're covering, which side you may root for. This is a game that both sides have made this clear, which is nice to see also in this college football climate. Both sides have made it clear. This is one game. They both want played every year. They both want to put their energy on getting this played as often as possible. It is the case. Who knows when we'll see it again? You had the game last year for the first time in a long time, but this game matters to the region for sure. The region that I'm in, the region that I cover. So get ready.
Here we go.
It's here. Yeah.
Well, Mike, as you know, Pitt turned out to be decidedly a better team last year at 9-4 with a bowl win over UCLA.
100%.
West Virginia not. However, when they got together, it came right down to the wire, and West Virginia was that close to tying the game late with that diving catch in the end zone before the interception by MJ Devonshire. And so when they got together, they look like identical twins to a certain extent. I got to say that I'm not surprised that West Virginia, of course, has a loss at this point, having to go to a team that may prove to be one of the 5 best teams in the country. However, I am surprised that Pitt did not get it done last week against Cincinnati, a bit of a disappointing loss.
To say the least, yeah. Pitt entered the season having tons of expectations. They want to keep it moving off the last couple of years. They don't want that to just be about Kenny Pickett and his Heisman campaign. Last year dipped a little bit. They kind of puttered away at the end of the year from what maybe their fans expected despite winning the Sun Bowl. So high expectations. But that Cincinnati game is also kind of why I thought West Virginia maybe could beat this Pitt team. Obviously, West Virginia's not been as good in recent years. Both teams look different this year than in the past. But Cincinnati put up the blueprint right there where you get to the quarterback, you get to Phil Jerkovich, you make him make mistakes, you make him maybe turn the football over, you take advantage of all of that, you do enough on offense, you don't let Pitt kill you on the ground, etc. Cincinnati was able to get a win. And Cincinnati's been a good program in recent years, despite some thinking they're a bit down now. And West Virginia, they got a win in their FCS game against Duquesne. They played that week 2, whereas Pitt played theirs week 1. Both teams just have the FCS game going into this, so both programs really need a win right now. But West Virginia didn't look great against Duquesne early in that game either. There was some joking around that, oh my God, could Duquesne actually have a chance or beat them and make this close? They end up pulling away and getting a convincing big win, but they lost to the number 7 team in the country on the road to start the year in Penn State. Penn State's a team that people think could vie for the playoff this year, whether or not they win the Big Ten. Their defense was great. Their defense is going to be good. Drew Aller looked great. He's only going to look better. That was a tough call for the Mountaineers, but none of that matters now going into this game. I do think West Virginia can beat Pitt. It's been up and down in terms of spreads and odds on who's favored in this. It is in Morgantown, and you did mention the difference of this being in week 3 versus week 1. An average to below average West Virginia team last year, maybe even worse than average, gave Pitt worries in week 1 because it probably was week 1. If they played in week 3 or 6, maybe Pitt wins bigger and easier. They didn't have film. Everyone has film now in week 3, so maybe you don't catch anybody napping, but maybe that's also better for both teams and from the West Virginia side because they feel like they're clicking a little bit more than they would have been shaking rust off in week 1. We'll see.
Mike, what seems to be the path to victory for West Virginia on the offensive side is they can run the football.
They can.
They've got some excellent offensive linemen, all conference types, C.J. Donaldson, and Pitt gave up 229 on the ground to Cincinnati last week.
That is absolutely going to be the recipe for the Mountaineers in any game they win this year. That's what they want to do, and they did put it on the ground, and they churned yards against Duquesne. It took them a while to get there, but that's what they want to do. And they don't want to just do it with C.J. Donaldson. He emerged in the backyard brawl last year. I don't think anyone on either side really, in terms of the fan base, knew much about him prior to the game. Had never played running back before as a position, was listed as a tight end on the depth chart even after the game. He emerged, was a stud, was a beast, wasn't enough for the Mountaineers. But they do have Jaheim White now, who wasn't there last year. He's shifty, he's fast, he's really, really hungry to have a big game. He emerged a little bit against Duquesne. And it's not even just about either one of them. DJ Oliver played a little bit against Duquesne. Justin Johnson Jr. is somebody that can get it done when given the rock. Jalen Anderson had a great game or two last year when given the opportunity, and he certainly can step it up and did against Duquesne. So when West Virginia's offense is clicking, it is ground and pound. It is click all through 3 or 4 running backs, and also have Garrett Green do it on the ground. He needs to be able to throw enough to be able to win at the highest level, and I'm sure Pitt's strategy is going to be, let's make Garrett Green beat us with his arm. If he does, tip the cap. If he doesn't, okay, we think he can't do it enough through all 4 quarters. We'll see. I think Neil Brown believes a little bit more of Garrett Green's arm than maybe most do around the country, so it's going to be a test for him, but he has a 4.5 speed on the ground. If he can get outside, maybe it's a track meet, and that's an advantage for West Virginia running with Garrett Green too. So they want to run. Pitt knows this, though, and Pitt maybe wants to run, too. They believe a lot in Filjerkovic, of course. He's a 6th-year vet, unlike Garrett Green starting for the first time as a top-flight quarterback in college football. But the recipe of Filjerkovic throwing 30-plus times hasn't worked in a while either. There's some around the country that believe he's at Pitt for a reason, and that's not a good one. So maybe these teams are both going to try to do the same thing. It's who can do it better and who can do it earlier. Maybe could tell the story in this game.
Yeah, when Jurkovec first arrived at Boston College from Notre Dame, I was impressed with him. I thought this guy's emerging. He's a big physical guy that is tough to get a handle and throw to the ground and has the passing skills. Now, it's only 2 games, but, Pitt fans aren't going to be too happy with having a second consecutive transfer quarterback who had a name in another location that didn't turn out to be the guy that they expected.
Yeah, and maybe the advantage in terms of fanfare for Filjerkovic is the fact that he's from the Western Pennsylvania area. Pitt wanted to get him out of high school. He actually was such a high-level recruit out of high school that he had the options of Notre Dame plus, and then, of course, falls on Boston College. But his career didn't turn out the way he would have wanted. If his career turned out the way he would have wanted, he would have probably been at one place, would have been a Hall of Famer there, would be a first-round draft pick. That's what people were talking about coming out of high school. It's not been that. So he's not coming. So I feel like some nationally maybe are confused. Like he's coming back to Pitt to do this feel-good story, like a charity service, but as a bridge to the future and then boost his value. He also is kind of needing to be there to boost his individual stock too. They both sides need each other. But there are many that I talk to nationally that evaluate quarterbacks that say he makes too many mistakes. He's still not cleaned that up. You can get to him if you have a good secondary, which the Mountaineers do not, or they haven't shown they do so far this year, even though they believe maybe they have a better one. You could cause Filjerkovic some problems. Again, that happened in the Cincinnati game. And as also is out there now, he was very, very honest of his feelings and how the fans treated him. So he's a hometown boy who's already in a little bit of a war with the hometown fans through only 2 games. He was getting booed at home when you lose to another Power 5 rival or major conference opponent. And he said, hey, if you're out here in this game booing, you got to reevaluate your life, basically, to paraphrase. That's not going to go over well in a blue-collar town when he was, 10 for 32 and saying not to boo me? This is on the road. He's going to get booed. Maybe he expects it. But if he turns back to Pittsburgh after back-to-back losses to rivals, including one in the brawl when Pitt feels they're the better team, he's going to start the game getting booed. So he needs to kind of prove himself to the fan base all over again, even though he grew up with some of them.
Speaking of the hot seat, now that's a quarterback situation, the coaching situation in West Virginia. What do you think Neil Brown needs to get accomplished this year?
It's a scorching seat for sure. I don't think that's a secret. And it kind of was last year, but I'm not surprised he was back despite the 5-7 finish. I think the program really does like him. They believe in kind of what he's selling, even though the fans no longer do. And they want this to work with Neil Brown. And everybody, when he was hired, certainly nationally, thought it was a slam dunk hire. He was a young up-and-comer, had great success at a group of 5. It makes sense. Maybe he'll even leave West Virginia someday to a better job. It hasn't worked. It hasn't been good enough. Below 500 for West Virginia as the 15th winningest program is not acceptable. But in year 5, it's now about just freaking winning more. The excuses of the schedule being tough, it's valid. I've talked about it. Not going to matter. You got to win games. I think what is the lowest bar for him to stay beyond this season is a bowl game. Now, winning the backyard brawl certainly will help and create some fanfare. And I called it jubilation on WV Sports Now. I don't think Mountaineer fans have had jubilation. They've celebrated some wins, but they haven't had jubilation in a while. You win the brawl, you'll have that for the first time probably since Brown got there. It'll be a staple win. But then if you putter the season away and go ahead and lose on the road to Dana Holgerson, who doesn't have a good team this year, and you still finish without a bowl game, no, then he could still be fired. If you lose the brawl, but you crawl into a 6-6 situation and get into a bowl, it won't feel good, but I think there's a chance they will sell on bringing him back one more time without an extension maybe. But anything lower than a bowl game, I think he will be gone even with a brawl win. Now, above 6 wins, I think he'll definitely be back. And I get fans don't want to hear that because I hear all the time West Virginia fans saying 8 wins at minimum. Not sure where you're getting that bar from. That's not what I'm hearing around the program. Wren's not throwing the number out there, but behind closed doors and kind of what I'm hearing at the program, I think a bowl would keep him around. Now, if it should is probably another question because, again, well below 500, 5 years in. As Pat McAfee said, this is all your thing. This isn't recruiting issues. This isn't trying to set a culture stone that he talked about. He even told you that if he had to do it all over again, 2019, he wishes he could have done a Deion Sanders thing. The rules didn't allow it then. Whether you could or not is immaterial. The rules didn't allow it. But we're now in 2023. Like, this is now your thing, your culture. The culture's good. The atmosphere's good. The former players are celebrated. I think the alums like it a lot better. I think the AD has a proper mindset that maybe wasn't the case before. You got to win football games. But I think a bowl appearance, certainly a bowl win, which would only be his second bowl win since taking over West Virginia, would keep him around one more year, whether fans want to hear that or not.
Follow Mike on Twitter and also catch his work at Pittsburgh Sports Now, WV Sports Now. So he's got it covered from both sides. Anything in particular that folks should be looking out for that you've got out there this week, Mike?
Well, we're going to have obviously tons of coverage of this game, and this rivalry works really well for our overall network, of course. We got things on both sites. We're sharing, going back and forth of Pittsburgh Sports Now, WV Sports Now. And I've said this for a while, and I do mean this. I think this is a very winnable game for West Virginia. I almost maybe would feel a little bit better about it if Pitt didn't just lose to Cincinnati because I feel like they're kind of desperate now. But I think this is a winnable game. I put this on the site already in terms of my opinions. I think this is a legacy setter for the future of the program, and certainly Neil Brown. A win here, it's not going to wash away being under 500. It won't make anyone like him probably that doesn't now, but it'll create a lot of fanfare within the program that I think he needs right now and will create some excitement. I think West Virginia can, and I really do actually think West Virginia is going to win this game. That is my pick for going into this game. I think they have the recipe to maybe win it, but if they don't, I wouldn't be shocked at all because the secondary has been really, really bad. But if the Mountaineers win it, I'd probably imagine there's an interception or two, probably leading to a score, if not eventually scoring. Guys like Beanie Bishop, who's real hungry with major conference play behind him, Aubrey Burks. PFF says he's an NFL player. Show me. Hasn't happened yet on the field. He's supposed to be better than last year. Last year wasn't good enough to go to the NFL. Show it. See what happens on the field. And again, I also think fans of both sides need to appreciate that in a college sports environment where doing anything on the schedule out of conference is either a debate or very difficult. And I do think West Virginia should probably only have one Power 5 or Power 4 or whatever it becomes rival opponent on that schedule. It's what everyone else does, but it'll make having these games that make sense geography wise more difficult. But they want the brawl. Pitt wants the brawl. I think fans on both sides need to at least agree that that's a great thing to hear. Whether it's week 1, week 3, or at the end of the season, that's a great thing to hear because it's hard to do more than that out of conference play in the future. When these contracts are up, I do think Wren is going to probably do, he said this to you as well, like one Power 5, one Group of 5 FCS. He's not lying. I believe what he's saying. There's no reason why he would just lie about that, which means you might play Penn State once every 20 years at most. Virginia Tech will be hard. Maryland, you maybe will never play again because they don't want to have a hard schedule out of conference. The brawl can happen because both sides want it to happen. And if one of these sides did not want this brawl, You wouldn't get this. You need both sides to want it to have this game occur in this environment. So whether or not Pitt and WVU are ever in the same conference again is immaterial. It's great this game is happening. I do think this game will happen again whenever this contract's up, and we'll see what happens on the field. West Virginia needs this win more, though. I mean, Pitt's had a lot more success recently. I think they can get over this. I think West Virginia losing again to Pitt after missing bowls, it'll be that feeling again. Like, yeah, even if you beat Texas Tech and get into conference play and do better, like, I don't think you're going to get the fan base back unless you win the brawl if you're Neil Brown. I think that's the only way to get those fans even close to trusting the climb again is winning the brawl. Even if he's retained and they get 6 wins, a brawl loss, I think, will still be we just like to move on.
It is always big, even bigger for Neil Brown, as Mike just outlined. Please like the video and subscribe here at the Voice of College Football, and then head on over to Pittsburgh Sports Now, West Virginia Sports Now, WV Sports Now, and take a deeper dive on this one that's coming up Saturday night. Mike, good to see you. We appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. It's going to be a good one for sure. I'm going to enjoy it one way or the other. So thanks again, man.